Hello everybody, welcome to another painting class. We're going to be looking at rolling hills, getting that depth and dimension, getting the movement into the brush strokes, some new clouds that you haven't seen before, and of course some foliage in the background and the foreground. I'm sorry that this is a recorded class that you're watching, but rather than postpone it, I've recorded this earlier today so that you can then still watch it at your leisure, but you can join us at 2 o'clock just for a recording rather than it being live. Actually, I think I said 2. I think it's probably about 4:30. Or is it 2? Whatever time it is, we're still here for you. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. And I've got a piece of acetate that's in a cello bag that's got a black card inside it so we can see where our paint goes. So let's look at the colours that I'm going to be putting out first. Well, one of my first shades is my emerald green. So I've got a little bit of that on my palette. I've also got some clover green, which you'll see. I've got a little bit of spring. So look at this lovely collection of colours that we're getting. That spring also looks quite chalky. It's got a lot of white in it. A little bit of red and blue in this one, a little bit of yellow tones in this one. So these are going to be great. And then finally, the last green that I'm going to put on this palette, I'm going to put just to here, and that's a leaf green. We're going to need a tiny little bit of yellow, so we'll pop that out. And this bottle seems to be a bit stuck, so I'm just going to open the lid and I'll clean that bottle later. And I'm just going to explain to you how I would clean this. So first of all, I'll take it over to a sink. Then I would push this lid firmly open. I'm not going to do it now in case it just spits paint. And then just using some cold water, run that under the cold tap so that all of this area gets cleaned off. Next, we're going to put some white out. These are our cloud colours. So we've got a little bit of our white there. I'm going to need some ultramarine to get that lovely bright blue summer sky that we want. And just going to get a little bit of that out. And I'm also going to use a little bit of champagne. This is a really warm colour and it's great when you're doing clouds, so you can see the difference between those two. And finally, a tiny little bit of horizon grey, and they're going to be my cloud shapes, and I'm going to combine that with some of the clover green that I've got here, just the tiniest little hint of it. So I'm going to start off by doing the first part of the design. So let me pop the paints this side so it'll make it easier for you to see my brush loading. And I'm going to be working with a number 18 flat. So my first thing I need to do is I need to pick up some of this white and also some of the blue. So I'm just going to be picking up the white and the blue together, loading those so I'm getting it really smooth and creamy, get plenty of white on there, and we're then going to build up and lay down our sky. So the first thing that I need to do here is to just bring that colour across, and I'm literally just letting that smoothly go across my palette and my page. So I'm taking it across each from right to left, picking up more of my paints, as you can see, but I'm only picking up the white because I want to keep that nice and light up here. So I've got more of the white each time I pick up my white. I'm not worrying anywhere I've got gaps. That's not going to matter because those gaps are going to get filled in. So I'm just taking this across each level of the sky, and then a little bit more, and again I'm still going to go in here and I'm picking up the blue from the palette. I've just rotated my brush so that I've got that blue coming in across the whole of the sky there, and the blue that's on the top edge of the brush, just building it in. And I'm going to go down this picture about halfway, and I've just about managed to use up the blue that was on this brush now. You can see it's now very, very pale and very faint. And I'm just going to go once more. I'm going to chisel load the white so it's across the whole of the brush and just get that little bit of white coming in to the sky as I come down here. So just backwards and forwards, making sure I'm keeping those colours. Now you may notice that my card is bouncing just a tiny bit. That's because it's actually a piece of A4. It's a half of the A4 down the length of it, and I'm going to use this and make this actually into a greeting card. So there's the top part of that. So this is basically A5, about, well, not quite A5 in size, but it's A5-ish. So I'll give you the exact dimensions. In fact, let me do that now so I don't forget. So it is going to be, 16 centimetres by 12, and that's it, the finished size of the card. Right, so for our clouds, we're going to go into this white, and I've got a scruffy brush. In fact, I'm going to be working with 2 of these scruffy brushes because I'm going to use both of them one after the other. There's always a good reason to get more than one brush when you're doing this, because you get lots of opportunity to be able to do that sort of pouncing. So the first thing that I've got here is a little bit of the white. Now I'm just going to put this, and I'm just going to pounce this onto my page, and you'll notice the white is only on 1/2 of the brush. So I'm going to keep that white still on that 1/2 of the brush, and I'm just going to pounce like this. Okay, then I'm going back to the brush that I started with. I'm going to take a little bit of white and the tiniest bit of the blue, so you can see those there, and I'm going to load this again onto my brush. So the white and the blue, making sure it feels nice and creamy. That's the effect that we're looking for. And then keep that going until we're sure we've got a nice creamy mix. And then I'm just going to come into here and I'm going to put in some other clouds, and I'm going to work with the white to the top, and I'm just going to push down and swirl, and just push down and swirl, and then again push down and swirl. So you'll see how I'm layering up the fluffy clouds and these soft sort of clouds that I've got, and just push and swirl, let that just come off to the edge. And then I go back with my white again. So I'm going to pick up some more, and I'm going to go over the top again, and I'm just putting in that little bit more white. And because the blue is still wet, I can pick it up and just move it a little bit with the brush that I've got in my hand. So you can see, again, I've only got the white on the top of that brush, but you can see a little bit of that darker blue coming through the clouds. But because we've got those white swirls over the top of them, I'm getting lots of dimension. Now, I've got one more area I want to put some of that white in. I'm going to take it right off the page there, and then come along the top, and then now I'm going into the champagne, and the champagne is going at the other end of the brush where I didn't have my original colour. And look at how soft and creamy that is when I'm now putting that in there as well. So we've got soft and creamy, just pouncing that off just a little bit at the top of those clouds. Make sure you don't want this effect, so make sure that you really tap it, and I'm working quite hard and pressing the brush in, and you can see how we're getting that effect that's coming in, those rolling clouds. And then I mentioned that green. I'm just going to get the tiniest bit. Now, when I pounce this, I'm going into the edge of this area of my painting. So I'm really picking up the white and that blue, and I'm angling the brush, so as I pick it up, you can see the angle that I've got, and I'm going very gently with it until I'm happy that I can just see little hints of the colour just coming through, just a little hint of it. It really is the smallest amount, and it's on these bottom clouds, so it's where we need that colour to just be sort of coming through. And then I'm going into the grey. And that grey is going to go over the top, not obliterating it, but it's just we're making some grey clouds. It's getting a little bit thundery along the bottom. I'm just really pushing that colour in so you can see. It's interesting, isn't it, how it really starts to, what have I done there? I've just lifted a little bit of the paint. I'm just going to pop that back down. You can really see how this sort of gives us that cloudy edge to the sky, which we've got just there. So I'm going back now with the white, just going to break it up and let some of those little white clouds come through. So just like that. And a little bit more over here. So we'll just get that bit in there. But we've got those blue swirls just showing through the clouds as we've got there. And then finally, just one last little bit of white right at the top there. Okay, so there we've got our clouds in. So we're ready to now start looking at the landscape. So without cleaning my brush down, but making sure I really load this well, I'm going to pick up the emerald first, and then I'm going to go into this clover green. And I'm just going to push those colours together. So the emerald has gone on where the blue would have been, and the clover has gone on where the white would have been. And we're then going to take the top of the brush and we're just going to slide it along and then turn it on its edge. So do the same thing once more from the other side. And we're going to go along the top like this and then turn it on its edge like that. Okay, so let's go again. This time more of the emerald, less of the clover. So it's going to be very green. And we're going to go there, and I'm just sliding it and letting that come up there. Okay, so I'm now starting to swap my colours. So I've got into my leaf green and the clover. So the leaf green is going to be the colour that's at the top there. And I'm just literally blending it to get myself a nice wide sweep as I go there. And then this time we're going to come from the top edge. And I'm going to come and I'm going to lift up and I'm then going to press down again. So you can see how you're getting all of these elements just sweeping their way through the design. So we'll take a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the leaf green, and I'm wanting to get that just a tiny bit darker, a bit muddier, a different shade. And I'm just going to go very slimly on the edge of my brush, and then I'm going to open that up and I'm going to come back up onto the edge. So I've got a little gap there, so let's go on the edge there and just up, and let's that just run through there. So you can see we're creating these undulating hills which look fabulous. So now where the yellow was, where the clover green was, I'm going to put up a little bit of the yellow, and I'm going to go into the leaf green, and I'm just going to see how we've got those colours really coming together and lightening each other. And we're just going to come on here, and I'm using the yellow to give me a sense of lightness, a sense of perspective. And also, when you look across the fields, there are so many different colours in there. We want to get that lightness, you know, the landscape colours. This could be just the tip of a field of corn that we've got. Those rapeseed fields that we have, always really lovely in the spring. So you can see now I've got more of that colour, but I've then loaded it, and I'm just going to take that one off to the edge. And then this one is going to come the other way, and it's going to come here. So again, I've got them crossing over. These little, you can see the little peaks of where the sun's shining. I'm really making the spring green work now. So I've got some of that spring green on my brush and I'm just lining it up. And the technique is very much on the flat of the brush. Slide your brush, bring it up onto the chisel edge so it crosses over. So you're getting that crossing over. And then I'm going to do the same again, more of that spring green, and let's go a little bit darker. We'll put a bit of the clover on here. We're just going to fill in the bottom of this card. So here we go. So there, right across here, and then let's go there, and I'm just going to go up and across just like that. So I've created all those hills. You can see the dimension there. It really does look like that undulating scenery that we absolutely love. So I've put in a lot of layers here because I wanted to repeat that technique. You don't need to do as many layers. It's entirely up to you. You can use a lot less if you choose to. I just like the effect that you get when you lay all of those colours down. Now, I'm just going to take a little bit of, I've got a dark brown here, and I'm going to use the dark brown. I'm going to change my brush size. So I'm just going to pop that one in the water. And I've gone right down to a number 8, which actually, let me see if I've got a slightly larger one. We'll go with a number 16, I think. This will give me a, yeah, just checking the chisel edge is good. So I'm going to pick up some of this blue and the brown because I want to get a really nice dark shade here. So I'm going to go with the blue and the brown, and it's giving me almost sort of like a black shade. It's like a chocolate, a dark, very dark chocolate. And you can't see it on here. I know it's quite difficult, challenging to see. Let me just show you this one here. So you can see, look, it's really quite intense, that colour. So I'm going to be picking up the black and the blue at the same time. And then I'm going out with that soft grey that I had. And I'm just getting those colours to come together. So a little bit of the grey, a little bit of the blue and the brown, and get that colour to come together. Now I've got to decide where I'm going to put this little road. So I'm going to start off with the grey towards me, and I'm just going to bring this one over there. So that's the first part of it. Now this one is going to come behind the field. So you can see it's behind. Let's have this one coming round like that. So that's going behind. So you can see how it's sort of sweeping round. Got a real camber on this one, haven't we? And I'm going to go from here down to here because this is implying that the road is sweeping round the hillside, and then we'll have it disappear behind here. Just the tiniest little bit of it there. So the road's just coming round, and then here, just there. So you can see how it is, and now it's going to get really thin. So you want to make sure that the brush is right on that chisel edge because you really only want the smallest amount. And we'll just catch that little bit just there. So there is our roads, and it really is a sweeping, windy road that's coming over the fields, and it really helps get that undulation and that effect coming through, which I think looks great. Okay, so I'm now just going to go back into my scruffy brush, and the brush that I was using has gone in the water, so I'm going to be using the clean one that I've got here. And now we're going to pick up half of the clover and half of the yellow, and it's you can see it's really is a 50-50 on that brush. We're pouncing really cleanly here, and I'm just going to put in this top layer of foliage, and I'm just going to get the start of where it's going. So just here, and we'll put some over here. So we'll need a bit more paint, and we'll put it just there. So the light shade of the tree is going to be on this side and the light shade of those trees over there will be. But before we go any further, I need to just pick up the brown and I'm going to dip load the grey. So I've taken it across the whole of the chisel edge and I'm going to come onto here. So you can see I'm softening that brown enormously from the colour next to it. I'm going to dip once more into the grey. So I've softened it once again. So really is quite soft in colour, but it's brown on one side and it's brown and graduated. We're going to put these trees in. Now the technique I'm going to use here is I'm going to put the dark colour to the bottom and the light colour to the top. So we're just going to do a few trees and I'm just putting them in like this, trying to keep them quite vertical, and we'll just get a few of them. And I'm also going to bring some down here so that it looks quite full and they're disappearing behind the tree line. Then over this side, I'm going to come up and I'm actually going to have to drag the brush because I want to fill this gap. So I'm just going to put a couple and then we'll have a couple of smaller ones. I'll just touch those to there. And I think I'm happy with where those trees are. I'm then going to come back into my paint and I'm going to pick up my yellow and my green, and this time I've got some leaf green. I'm going to get that yellow really pushed into the brush and we're going to go like this. So the leaf green is going to be the darker one, and see how it's covering over that element that I put down earlier. It's not obliterating it, it's just complementing it. And we're just going to go again, quite open, not too dense. Need some greenery down the bottom, keep that nice and clean as well. So with some of that yellow and just across here and some green, tiniest bit of yellow, get that really pounced in. So the yellow always stays on this side of the picture and we're getting that little bit. So it's a hint of where the light comes from. Just get really overhanging trees. So they're quite intense. You know, those big old-fashioned oak trees that you get. And then it will be a bit denser down here where we've got those other trees just literally filling in the gaps. You can see we really got sort of a whole little tiny woodland going on there. And then over on the other side, I'm going to start with my two greens and I'm just going to pounce those on and get some really strong foliage in here. This is a much more, much closer tree, so we want a little bit more detail in it. Don't make it too solid. Make sure you can still see some of the landscape behind it, and particularly the skyline. We want to make sure we can always see a little bit of that skyline, because that is the thing that will make the trees look light, and you can always see a little bit of the sky through them. If they're this style where they're not overly dense, you can even see a little bit of the landscape behind them and you're getting that overview of how this looks. So we've really got that depth and dimension. Now I've got some of these trees looking like they're floating. So here I'm going to take the green side of the brush and I'm just going to put myself a little bit of foliage in, as if they're sort of great tall bushes in the fields, just that little bit of it just finishing off that top edge. And then we've got the chance to put it in other places as well. So I'm just going to put a little bit of it along here. So we've got a little bit of greenery there. Let's do a little bit just here, just gently letting that just fade away. And then I'll go back with the yellow and put that little bit of yellow along the top. So you can see how we're sort of getting a little bit of texture in here. Okay, so now we've very gently, I'm just finishing off pouncing, putting a tiny little bit of texture in this field. So we've got some of that. Right, I'm going to pounce off this paint. So literally, I am taking a piece of blue roll or kitchen paper and pouncing it until the brush is nearly dry. And then I'm going to pick up some white and I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got the white across the whole of the brush and I'm pouncing that off and pushing it and pouncing it into the paint. That's what I'm looking for, just a very soft texture. And that soft texture is going to go in this field. So it's a field of daisies, of little white buttercup, little white flowers. Maybe we might put a few buttercups in. We could put some yellow in there as well. You've just got this really soft carpet. And that one is over here as well. There's a little soft carpet of those flowers on this side. And they're just filling this area here. I'm just going back in and getting that little bit of texture. And so you can see we've got flowers in both fields. Let's make this one a little bit more dense in this area. So, and then the tiniest bit of yellow, same effect, pounce it off, but just go in and put the little tiny tint of yellow on some of those flowers. So let's go again, the tiniest bit and just tiny little tinge of yellow in there. So we've got those colours in. Okay, so apart from a little bit of texture that I need along the tree trunks, and let's put some of them in amongst those trees too. Okay, so we're starting to get our scene. Now, really quite lovely. And now it's time for us to put some detail in the front of the picture. So I'm going to take my, let's go with the leaf green and the yellow. And I've got it over where the brown was. So plenty of leaf, plenty of yellow. And don't worry about the brown underneath, it'll look good. And we're just going to do these little straight strokes. And let's get some, I've turned my brush, so you saw there that I turned it. So I've got some of them with the green leading and some of it with the yellow leading. I'm just putting these in really gently and letting us get some extra depth. So we can now really see the different layers and the elements that we've got. And tiny little bit of the white to just get a bit more freshness in these leaves. And there you can see just that little hint of colour. Don't get them all going in one direction. You want them crossing over. You want different layers on here. And we want to make sure you can see those different shades all coming through like we've got just here. I'll just finish that off. So along the bottom, it can look quite just unruly, really. So I like to go in with my brush, maybe pick a tiny little, my scruffy brush, just even a tiny little bit of the brown, as if the flowers are just poking through that little bit of soil that you've got. I'm not going to put too much on, just a little bit, just to sort of, I guess, ground the design is what we're looking to do. So we've got those in. Now we need to get some little daisies. So for this, I'm going to be using a round brush. And I'm actually going to work with the number 4 or the number 6. So let's start with the number 6. And we're going to start off and we're just going to side load the brush like this. So I've only got it on one side. And then the way that these little flowers work, you touch and pull, touch and pull, touch and pull. So that's all we're doing with this. So we're going to do touch and pull, touch and pull, touch and pull, 3 or 4 petals, entirely up to you what you want to do. Touch and pull, touch and pull. Try and get them so that you start off with a little ball at the bottom and it comes up and it finishes nice and neatly. A couple more, I think. Just let's put one here so it's overlapping a little, so it looks like nature does, because always fights for its own space. And then with the scruffy brush that we were working with, a couple of choices here. So we can use our brush that we've got and just go with the end of it, and you literally are touching it the tiniest little bit to create a little bit of a centre in those flowers. Or you can go in with your scruffy brush and a tiny little bit there, but whichever way you do, keep it very, very small. I'm going to go back in because I need a few more of these little daisy-like flowers, and I'm just going to, again, I've still only got a very small amount of paint on my brush, and I'm just going to put in touch and pull, touch and pull, touch and pull. I've got some really little ones coming up here, and you can see they're only sort of half open. We've got them there, and let's do a couple over this side. So they're both sides of our path. And then we'll have one here. Make sure they go in different directions. You don't want them all facing the same way. And then I'm just going to go back in with that little bit of yellow. Remember, it's the tiniest little bit, so tap off most of it and come into here and just on here and just on here. And we'll get that little bit of detail just into those daisies. And I think we can say that that is one of our pictures. So we've got a really lovely picture. I'm just going to lift this one up. So remember, I did do this as a card front. So just wanted to be able to show you that that is what our hand painted card would look like. Now, I have got a little bit of that paint bleeding to the side. What I would do here is I would cut this off and I would mount it onto a card because it'll look lovely with the black mount around it. Or the other thing that you can do is you can then line the card with another piece of cardboard. But I wanted you to see the effect of me literally lifting it and making it stand. I love the effect that we've got there, really clever. So I'm just going to show you a few more compositions that have been done that are based around this particular card. And then I'll get Andrew to photograph them for you so that you've got them to see really close up. So that's the one that we've just painted in class. Here's another one that I did, a different shape. So it's a wider card. You can see there the clouds still that fluffy, less white in these, and the road not as obvious, softer, and giving you more depth to the design. So much more rolling and a flatter landscape than the one that I've got here. But I really wanted to emphasize this stroke that we were doing. So there we've got, it's much flatter. There you can see much more rolling. This one uses a lot lighter greens. And again, I've made it rolling, but you can see there the effects that we've got, particularly that sort of greeny cream that we created in the clouds, I think looks really effective. And then finally, I've got one more that's on a different shape again. And this one's on an oval, and put some little red flowers in the side of this one. So, and you know, this one's on a bit of a hillside, got a little bit of a slope going on there, but the clouds are still pretty straight. So it gives you an idea of the kind of thing that you can create. Okay, so they're different sizes, different effects, different projects. Any questions, please, you can email me, stephanie@highlightcrafts.com, and don't forget to visit the Highlight Crafts website for a full selection of all of the Cadence paints. And we're really sorry that this had to be pre-recorded. I didn't want you to lose the opportunity to watch it today. So we have pre-recorded it for you, but we're here for you. Any questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Lots more coming on from Cadence, and really excited to be launching our Cadence Academy next year, which we'll keep telling you little snippets about. So in the meantime, happy painting, everyone. It's been my pleasure as always, and I hope that I'll see you on my painting class, my free class, which is later on tonight. So if you are watching now, then don't forget to join me at 6:30 tonight. Have I got that time right, Andrew? Voice is in my hair. Voice is in my ear. It's actually 6 till 7. Ignore me. What do I know? I just like painting. See you all soon.